everyone, welcome back to our chapter book read-along of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. We're reading the awesome illustrated copy by John Rocco. He illustrated this, and it is spectacular. Now, we are getting to the end of our hero's adventure, and we have a lot to cover. So first, if you're watching this with someone, take a moment to pause. Think about maybe some of your favorite parts that have happened so far, your favorite characters. What exactly is this quest that Percy Jackson, Annabeth, and Grover are on? What are they looking for? Then come back, and here goes my quick review. Percy Jackson is our main character. The beginning of the story, he is on a trip with his school. He gets in trouble, and his teacher, Mrs. Dodds, takes him aside. Turns out, Mrs. Dodds isn't what she seems, and she is a monster. She grows wings, her eyes glow, she has terrifying claws. It's scary. But his other teacher, Mr. Brunner, tosses him a sword, and Percy saves the day by defeating his teacher, Mrs. Dodds. We move forward a bit. Percy and his best friend Grover are heading to New York. In New York City, we meet Percy's mom, Sally Jackson, and his stepdad, who's not great. His name is Smelly Gabe. Mean guy. Percy's mom is wonderful. Well, to celebrate him coming back from school, he and his mother go on a little trip. While at the beach, there's a storm, and Grover finds them and tells them that they are in danger. Also, he's a satyr, which means he has goat legs and little horns coming out of his hair. Percy and Percy's mom travel as fast as they can to Camp Half-Blood. There, they get stopped by the Minotaur, a fearsome beast that has the huge body and a head of a bull. Very hard to stop. It grabs Percy's mom, and she disappears in a cloud of gold dust. Well, Percy luckily defeats the Minotaur, and he and Grover go into Camp Half-Blood. At Camp Half-Blood, Percy meets the camp director, which is Dionysus, the god of wine, and the activities director, who looks familiar as he is Percy's teacher, Mr. Brunner. But he actually goes by Carrion, and he is a centaur, top half of a guy, back half of a horse. And he has been teaching heroes and training them for years and years. Percy learns what Camp Half-Blood is for. It is for children who have one mortal or regular human parent and one parent who is a Greek god. He meets a few different friends. He meets Annabeth from the Athena cabin, so her mother is Athena, and Luke from Hermes. All of the kids stay in a cabin that goes with their godly parent. Well, not all of the gods have claimed their kids, so some of them stay in Hermes because they have nowhere else to go. Percy also meets Clarice, who is not so friendly, and she is the daughter of the war god Ares. Well, they all play capture the flag, and Percy is claimed by his father, the god of the sea, Poseidon. Then Percy, Annabeth, and Grover go on a quest. Turns out, Zeus, who is the king of the gods, his master bolt, his biggest weapon, has been stolen. He thinks his brother Poseidon did it by using his son Percy. But he didn't. And they all think that Hades, the god of the Underworld, has it. So Percy, Annabeth, and Grover race to the other side of the country to try to get into the Underworld and find the master bolt from Hades, and then take it all the way back to Mount Olympus, which is at the top of the Empire State Building. Well, along the way of their quest, they run into a lot of problems. They run into all three of the Furies, Mrs. Dodds and her sisters, scary monsters, and explode a bus. Then they run into Medusa, who can turn you into stone just by looking in her eyes. Ooh, scary monster. Then a huge fire-breathing lion with a snake tail catches up with them in the arch over St. Louis. They blow a hole in the side of the arch. Luckily survive. Then they meet Ares in Denver, Colorado, and he puts them on another little quest. Then they ride all the way to Las Vegas, and accidentally get stuck in a hotel that they don't know how much time is passing. And they come out of the hotel and learn that they only have a few days left until it is time to finish their quest. Well, they hop in a taxi and drive as fast as they can to LA. And there they hop on Santa Monica Beach, where Percy's dad told him to meet the spirit of the sea, a Nereid. And she gives them 3 pearls and says to use them in dire need only. Next, they're running through LA and they get a little lost and go into a mattress store that is run by a terrifying monster who likes to stretch his victims to fit the mattress. Oi. Percy luckily defeats them and saves Annabeth and Grover just in time and learns exactly where the entrance to the Underworld is. They are only 1 block away. So, in our next chapter, we are going to see how our heroes get into the Underworld. Enjoy! Chapter 18. Annabeth Does Obedience School. We stood in the shadows of Valencia Boulevard, looking up at gold letters etched in black marble. DOA Recording Studios. Underneath, stenciled on glass doors, no solicitors, no loitering, no living. It was almost midnight, but the lobby was brightly lit and full of people. Behind the security desk sat a tough-looking guard with sunglasses and an earpiece. I turned to my friends. Okay, you remember the plan? The plan? Grover gulped. Yeah, I love the plan. Annabeth said, what happens if the plan doesn't work? Don't think negative, I said. Right, she said. We are entering the land of the dead, and I shouldn't think negative. I took the pearls out of my pocket, the 3 milky spheres the Nereid had given me in Santa Monica. They didn't seem like much of a backup in case something went wrong. Annabeth put her hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Percy. You're right. We'll make it. It'll be fine. She gave Grover a nudge. Oh, right, he chimed in. We got this far. We'll find the Master Bolt and save your mom. No problem. I looked at them both. I felt really grateful. Only a few minutes before, I'd almost gotten them stretched to death on deluxe waterbeds, and now they were trying to be brave for my sake, trying to make me feel better. I slipped the pearls back in my pocket. Let's whoop some Underworld butt, I said, and we walked inside the DOA lobby. Muzak played softly on hidden speakers. The carpet and walls were steel gray. Pencil cactuses grew in the corners like skeleton hands. The furniture was black leather, and every seat was taken. There were people sitting on couches, people standing up, people staring out the window or waiting for the elevator. Nobody moved, or talked, or did much of anything. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see them all just fine. But if I focused on one of them in particular, they started looking transparent. I could see right through their bodies. The security guard's desk was a raised podium, so we had to look up at him. He was tall and elegant, with chocolate-colored skin and bleached blonde hair, shaved military style. He wore tortoiseshell shades and a silk Italian suit that matched his hair. A black rose was pinned to his lapel under a silver name tag. I read the name tag, looked at him in bewilderment. Your name's Carrion? He leaned across the desk. I couldn't see anything in his glasses except my own reflection, but his smile was sweet and cold, like a python's right before it eats you. What a precious young lad. He had a strange accent, British maybe, but also as if he had learned English as a second language. Tell me, mate, do I look like a centaur? No. Sir, he added smoothly. Sir, I said. He pinched the name tag and ran his finger under the letters. Can you read this, mate? It says Charon. Say it with me. Carry on. Carrion. Amazing. Now, Mr. Carrion. Mr. Carrion, I said. Well done. He sat back. I hate being confused with that old horseman. Now, how may I help you little dead ones? His question caught in my stomach like a fastball. I looked at Annabeth for support. We want to go to the Underworld,
she said. Carrion's mouth twitched. Well, that's refreshing.
It is?
She said. Straightforward and honest. No screaming. No, there was a mistake, Mr. Carrion. He looked us over. How did you die then? I nudged Grover. Oh, he said, drowned in the bathtub. All three of you? Carrion asked. We nodded. Big bathtub. Carrion looked mildly impressed. I don't suppose you have coins for passage. Normally with adults, you see, I could charge you American Express or add the ferry price to your last cable bill. But with children, alas, you never die prepared. Suppose you'll have to take a seat for a few centuries.
Oh, but we have coins. I set 3 golden drachmas on the counter, part of the stash I'd found in Krusty's office desk.
Well now.
Carrion moistened his lips.
Real drachmas. Real golden drachmas. I haven't seen these in...
His fingers hovered greedily over the coins. We were so close. Then Carrion looked at me. His cold stare behind his glasses seemed to bore a hole through my chest.
Here now, he said. You couldn't read my name correctly. You dyslexic, lad.
No, I said. I'm dead. Carrion leaned forward and took a sniff.
You're not dead. I should have known. You're a godling.
We have to get to the Underworld, I insisted. Carrion made a growling sound deep in his throat. Immediately, all of the people in the waiting room got up and started pacing, agitated, lighting cigarettes, running hands through their hair, or checking their wristwatches.
Leave while you can, Carrion told us. Or just take these and forget I saw you.
He started to go for the coins, but I snatched them back. No service, no tip. I tried to sound braver than I felt. Carrion growled again, a deep, blood-chilling sound. The spirits of the dead started pounding on the elevator doors. It's a shame, too, I sighed. We had more to offer. I held up the entire bag from Krusty's stash. I took out a fistful of drachmas and let the coins spill through my fingers. Carrion's growl changed into something more like a lion's purr.
Do you think I can be bought, godling? Just out of curiosity, how much have you got there?
A lot, I said. I bet Hades doesn't pay you well enough for such hard work.
Oh, you don't know the half of it. How would you like to babysit these spirits all day? Always, please don't let me be dead, or please let me cross for free. I haven't had a pay raise in 3,000 years. Do you imagine suits like this come cheap?
You deserve better, I agreed. A little appreciation, respect, good pay. With each word, I stacked another gold coin on the counter. Carrion glanced down at his silk Italian jacket, as if imagining himself in something even better.
I must say, lad, you're making some sense now. Just a little.
I stacked another few coins. I could mention a pay raise while I'm talking to Hades. He sighed.
Boat's almost full anyway. I might as well add you 3 and be off.
He stood, scooped up our money, and said,
Come along.
We pushed through the crowd of waiting spirits who started grabbing at our clothes like the wind, their voices whispering things I couldn't make out. Carrion shoved them out of the way, grumbling, Freeloaders. He escorted us into the elevator, which was already crowded with souls of the dead, each one holding a green boarding pass. Carrion grabbed 2 spirits who were trying to get on with us and pushed them back into the lobby.
Right, no one get any ideas while I'm gone, he announced to the waiting room. And if anyone moves the dial off my easy listening station again, I'll make sure you're here for another 1,000 years. Understand?
He shut the doors, put a key card into the slot in the elevator panel, and we started to descend. What happens to the spirits waiting in the lobby? Annabeth asked.
Nothing,
Carrion said. For how long?
Forever, until I'm feeling generous.
Oh, she said, that's fair. Carrion raised an eyebrow.
Whoever said death was fair, young miss? Wait until it's your turn. You'll die soon enough where you're going.
We'll get out alive, I said.
Ha,
Carrion said. I got a sudden dizzy feeling.
We weren't going down anymore, but forward. The air turned misty. Spirits around me started changing shape. Their modern clothes flickered, turning into gray hooded robes. The floor of the elevator began swaying. I blinked hard. When I opened my eyes, Carrion's creamy Italian suit had been replaced by a long black robe. His tortoiseshell glasses were gone. Where his eyes should have been, there were empty sockets. Like Ares' eyes, except Carrion's were totally dark, full of night and death and despair. He saw me looking and said, "Well?" Nothing," I managed. I thought he was grinning, but that wasn't it. The flesh of his face was becoming transparent, letting me see straight through to his skull. The floor kept swaying. Grover said, "I think I'm going to be seasick." When I blinked again, the elevator wasn't an elevator anymore. We were standing in a wooden barge. Carrion was pulling us across a dark, oily river, swirling with bones, dead fish, and other stranger things. Plastic dolls, crushed carnations, soggy diplomas with gilt edges. "The river sticks," Annabeth murmured. "It's so..." "Polluted," Carrion said. "For thousands of years, you humans have been throwing in everything you come across. Hopes, dreams, wishes that never came true. Irresponsible waste management, if you ask me." Mist curled off the filthy water. Above us, almost lost in the gloom, was a ceiling of stalactites. Ahead, the far shore glimmered with greenish light, the color of poison. Panic closed up in my throat. What was I doing here? These people around me, they were dead. Annabeth grabbed hold of my hand. Under normal circumstances, this would have embarrassed me, but I understood how she felt. She wanted reassurance that somebody else was alive on this boat. I found myself muttering a prayer, though I wasn't quite sure who I was praying to. Down here, only one God mattered, and he was the one I had come to confront. The shoreline of the Underworld came into view. Craggy rocks and black volcanic sand stretched inland about 100 yards to the base of a high stone wall, which marched off in either direction as far as we could see. A sound came from somewhere nearby, in the green gloom, echoing off the stones, the howl of a large animal. "Old Three-Face is hungry," Carrion said. His smile turned skeletal in greenish light. "Bad luck for you, godlings." The bottom of our boat slid onto the black sand. The dead began to disembark. A woman holding a little girl's hand, an old man and an old woman hobbling along arm in arm, a boy no older than I was, shuffling silently along in his gray robe. Carrion said, "I wish you luck, mate, but there isn't any down here. Mind you, don't forget to mention my pay raise." He counted our golden coins in his pouch, then took up his pole. He warbled something that sounded like Barry Manilow's song as he ferried an empty barge back across the river. We followed the spirits up the well-worn path. I'm not sure what I was expecting. Pearly gates or a big black portcullis or something, but the entrance to the Underworld looked like a cross between airport security and the Jersey Turnpike. There were 3 separate entrances under one huge black archway that said, "You are now entering Cerebus." Each entrance had a pass-through metal detector with security cameras mounted on top. Beyond this, there were toll booths manned by black-robed ghouls like Carrion. The howling of the hungry animal was really loud now, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. The 3-headed dog, Cerebus, who was supposed to guard Hades' door, was nowhere to be seen. The dead queued up in 3 lines, 2 marked attendant on duty, and 1 marked EZ Death. The EZ Death line was moving right along. The other 2 were crawling. "What do you figure?" I asked Annabeth. "The fast line must go straight to the Asphadel Fields," she said. "No contest. They don't want to go and risk judgment from the court, because it might go against them." "There's a court for dead people?" "Yeah, 3 judges. They switch around who sits on the bench. King Minos, Thomas Jefferson, Shakespeare, people like that. Sometimes they look at a life and decide that person needs a special reward, the Fields of Elysium.
Sometimes they decide on punishment, but most people, well, they just lived. Nothing special, good or bad. So they go to the Asphadel Fields. And do what? Grover said, imagine standing on a wheat field in Kansas. Forever. Harsh, I said. Not as harsh as that, Grover muttered. Look. A couple of black-robed ghouls had pulled aside one spirit and were frisking him at the security desk. The face of the dead man looked vaguely familiar. He's that preacher who made the news, remember? Grover asked. Oh, yeah. I did remember now. We'd seen him on TV a couple of times at the Yancey Academy dorm. He was this annoying televangelist from upstate New York who'd raised millions of dollars for orphanages and then got caught spending the money on stuff for his mansion, like gold-plated toilet seats and an indoor putt-putt golf course. He died in a police chase when his Lamborghini for the Lord went off a cliff. I said, what are they doing to him? Special punishment from Hades, Grover guessed. The really bad people get his personal attention as soon as they arrive. The kindly ones will set up an eternal torture for him. The thought of the Furies made me shudder. I realized I was in their home territory now. Old Mrs. Dodds would be licking her lips with anticipation. But if he's a preacher, I said, and he believes in a different hell. Grover shrugged. Who says he's seeing this place the way we're seeing it? Humans see what they want to see. You're very stubborn, or persistent, that way. We got closer to the gates. The howling was so loud now, it shook the ground at my feet, but I still couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Then, about 50 feet in front of us, the green mist shimmered. Standing just where the path split into the 3 lanes was an enormous, shadowy monster. I hadn't seen it before because it was half transparent, like the dead. Until it moved, it blended with whatever was behind it. Only his eyes and teeth looked solid, and it was staring straight at me. My jaw hung open. All I could think to say was, he's a Rottweiler. I'd always imagined Cerebus as a black mastiff, but he was obviously a purebred Rottweiler, except for, of course, that he was twice the size of a woolly mammoth, mostly invisible, and had 3 heads. The dead walked right up to him, no fear at all. The attendant on duty lines parted on either side of him. The easy death spirits walked right between his front paws and under his belly, which they could do without even crouching. I'm starting to see him better, I muttered. Why is that? I think, Annabeth moistened her lips, I'm afraid it's because we're getting closer to being dead. The dog's middle head craned toward us. It sniffed the air and growled. It can smell the living, I said. But that's okay, Grover said, trembling next to me, because we've got a plan. Right, Annabeth said. I'd never heard her voice sound quite so small. A plan. We moved toward the monster. The middle head snarled at us, then barked so loudly my eyeballs rattled. Can you understand it? I asked Grover. Oh, yeah, he said. I can understand it. What's he saying? I don't think humans have a 4-letter word that translates exactly. I took the big stick out of my backpack, a bedpost I'd broken off Krusty's Safari Deluxe floor model. I held it up and tried to channel happy dog thoughts towards Cerebus. Alpo commercials, cute little puppies, fire hydrants. I tried to smile like I wasn't about to die. Hey, big fella, I called up. I bet they don't play with you much. Good boy, I said weakly. I waved the stick. The dog's middle head followed the movement. The other 2 heads trained their eyes on me, completely ignoring the spirits. I had Cerebus's undivided attention. I wasn't sure that was a good thing. Fetch! I threw the stick into the gloom. A good solid throw. I heard it go kersploosh in the river Styx. Cerebus glared at me, unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. So much for the plan.
Cerebus was now making a new kind of growl, deeper in his 3 throats. Grover said. Percy? Yeah? I just thought you'd want to know. Yeah? Cerebus, he's saying we've got 10 seconds to pray to the god of our choice. After that, well, he's hungry. Wait! Annabeth said. She started rifling through her pack. Uh-oh, I thought. 5 seconds, Grover said. Do we run now? Annabeth produced a rubber ball the size of a grapefruit. It was labeled Waterland, Denver, Colorado. Before I could stop her, she raised the ball and marched straight up to Cerebus. She shouted, See the ball? You want the ball, Cerebus? Sit! Cerebus looked as stunned as we were. All 3 of his heads cocked sideways. 6 nostrils dilated. Sit! Annabeth called again. I was sure at any moment she would become the world's largest milk-bone dog biscuit. But instead, Cerebus licked his 3 sets of lips, shifted on his haunches, and sat, immediately crushing a dozen spirits who had been passing underneath him in the easy death line. The spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated, like air let out of tires. Annabeth said, Good boy! She threw Cerebus the ball. He caught it in his middle mouth. It was barely big enough for him to chew, and the other heads started snapping at the middle, trying to get the new toy. Drop it! Annabeth ordered. Cerebus's head stopped fighting and looked at her. The ball was wedged between 2 of his teeth, like a tiny piece of gum. He made a loud, scary whimper, then dropped the ball, now slimy and bitten nearly in half, at Annabeth's feet. Good boy! She picked up the ball, ignoring the monster spit all over it. She turned toward us. Go now! Easy deathline, it's faster, I said. But no! She ordered, in the same tone she was using on the dog. Grover and I inched forward warily. Cerebus started to growl. Stay! Annabeth ordered the monster. If you want the ball, stay! Cerebus whimpered, but he stayed where he was. What about you? I asked Annabeth as we passed her. I know what I'm doing, Percy, she muttered. At least I'm pretty sure. Grover and I walked between the monster's legs. Please, Annabeth, I prayed, don't tell him to sit again. We made it through. Cerebus wasn't any less scary looking from the back. Annabeth said, Good dog! She held up the tattered red ball, and probably came to the same conclusion I did. If she rewarded Cerebus, there'd be nothing left for another trick. She threw the ball anyway. The monster's left mouth immediately snatched it up, only to be attacked by the middle head, while the right head moaned in protest. While the monster was distracted, Annabeth walked briskly under its belly and joined us at the metal detector. How did you do that? I asked her, amazed. Obedience school, she said breathlessly, and I was surprised to see there were tears in her eyes. When I was little, at my dad's house, we had a Doberman. Never mind that, Grover said, tugging at my shirt. Come on! We were about to bolt through the easy death line when Cerebus moaned pitifully from all 3 mouths. Annabeth stopped. She turned to face the dog, which had done a 180 to look at us. Cerebus panted expectantly, the tiny red ball in pieces and a puddle of drool at his feet. Good boy, Annabeth said, but her voice sounded melancholy and uncertain. The monster's head turned sideways, as if worried about her. I'll bring you another ball soon, Annabeth promised faintly. Would you like that? The monster whimpered. I didn't need to speak dog to know that Cerebus was still waiting for the ball. Good dog. I'll come visit soon. I promise. She turned to us. Let's go. Grover and I pushed through the metal detector, which immediately screamed and set off flashing red lights. Unauthorized possessions! Magic detected! Cerebus started to bark. We burst through the easy death gate, which started even more alarms blaring, and raced into the underworld. A few minutes later, we were hiding, out of breath, and in the rotten trunk of an immense black tree, as security ghouls scuttled past, yelling for backup from the Furies. Grover murmured, Well, Percy, what have we learned today? The 3-headed dogs prefer red rubber balls over sticks? No, Grover told me. we've learned that your plans really, really bite. I wasn't sure about that. I thought maybe Annabeth and I had both had the right idea. Even here in the Underworld, everybody, even monsters, needed a little attention once in a while. I thought about that as we waited for the ghouls to pass. I pretended not to see Annabeth wipe a tear from her cheek as she listened to the mournful keening of Cerebus in the distance, longing for his new friend.
Wow, the Underworld does not sound like a great place to go. But I do feel a little bad for Cerebus. Poor little dog just wants to play fetch. I guess he's not little, he's huge. But he just wants to play fetch with a ball every once in a while. Alright, let's first look at our map. Where have our heroes gotten themselves to? Now, they are over here in LA, in California. We have gotten to all of the locations on our map. The Waterbed Palace, the Santa Monica Pier, and now DOA Recording Studios, which is the entrance to the Underworld. They've made it all the way across. Look at that. All right, let's see if they can finish this quest nice and strong. Let's talk about some of the things that happened in our chapter. Our chapter was titled, Annabeth Does Obedience School. Why does the security guard at the DOA recording studios, or the entrance to the Underworld, get annoyed with Percy? Well, Percy pronounces his name wrong. Do you ever get kind of a little frustrated when someone pronounces your name wrong or thinks you're somebody else? I look like my sister, so I gotten over that a long time ago. But he doesn't like being mistaken for Carrion, which is Percy's teacher, who is a centaur. His name is Carrion, spelled very similarly, so I can understand how Percy got it mixed up. But it gives the guard a clue as to who Percy is, doesn't it? How did you figure out that they're not dead? Percy had struggles reading it because he's dyslexic. And a lot of the heroes, or the kids who are half-bloods, one parent is a god, they are dyslexic, which means that it's really hard for them to read, and some of the letters mix up. So, kind of give them away. How does Percy finally convince Carrion to take them to the Underworld and ride in that elevator? He has plenty of golden drachmas that he gave to Carrion and was just kind of giving more and more. He saw that Carrion was wearing a very fancy suit and clearly likes to look nice. He tried to also convince him that he's going to ask Hades for a raise for Carrion. So what is in the river Styx? So they have to float through on a boat. They start in an elevator, right? But then they float through the river Styx on a boat. And there's a bunch of things just floating in there. Let's look at this picture. There it is. You can see how Carrion turned into the guy with the hood. Our three heroes are at the front of the boat. In the river, there were different things floating around. Do you remember what it was? They represented hopes and dreams of people who just kind of tossed them away. So there were things like dancing shoes, and someone said a prom corsage or something. What was the entrance of the Underworld like? Do you remember what Percy compared it to? He compared it to a tollway. Have you ever been through a tollway? So when you're driving on the interstate, sometimes they have these huge things that you have to pay to go through to the next part of the interstate. It helps the state take care of the roads and make sure they're nice. So it's this huge overhang that everyone drives through, and sometimes you have to stop and pay the person, or you slow down and you toss some coins into the thing. Well, it looks like that because all of the roads kind of split into different lines. And he also said it kind of looks like an airport where you have to go through airport security. Even if you haven't been to an airport before, that's okay. You'll see them a lot in movies where everyone has to take all of their stuff out and you have to go through an x-ray and make sure you don't have any metal or anything on you or anything that's not supposed to go on the airplane. So it reminded Percy of that kind of thing where you just walk through and you have to go through the line and the security. It's really anything that has security lines. What is Percy's plan to get past the giant three-headed dog, Cerebus? What's Percy's plan? Well, he gets out a giant stick and tries to have him go get it. He's like, fetch! What happens? Absolutely nothing. I don't think Cerebus likes sticks. But who saves him? Who comes up with an even better idea? Annabeth. He is lucky to have her. She has a giant red ball. And she gets him to play. Maybe what's the difference between Percy and Annabeth's way of thinking? Well, later, we learn that Annabeth had taken a family dog to obedience school. So she knew how to train him and how to talk to the dog. Percy probably didn't have as much experience, so that was harder for him. Obedience school for a dog is where they go and learn tricks like how to sit and stay and listen to their owners. And so she used her very firm voice to get him to listen. And he wanted to play. What did Percy end up realizing about monsters at the end of this chapter? I think he thought maybe not all of them are bad. You know, Cerebus just kind of wanted to play with a ball, and he really liked Annabeth. So maybe they just need some attention every once in a while, too. Did you feel sorry for Cerebus at the end when he was whining? Do you think you would have risked playing ball with a giant three-headed dog? I personally love dogs, so I probably would have tried. But I wouldn't always suggest that. Let's look at that picture real quick before we move on of Annabeth playing ball with Cerebus. Is that big red ball just for him? Good thing she took that from Waterworld, huh? All right, that is where we are going to finish for today. We'll continue our hero's journey through the Underworld in our next chapter. Bye, everyone!